Hello, my name is Alice Roper, and thank you for tuning into our webinar on a leader's guide to keeping the talent bar high when scaling at speed. I'm also joined by my colleague, Jamie Cross.
Hi everyone, it's good to be here. To give you a brief overview, we are the directors within the Scale Up vertical at Talentful. Our roles are to partner and advise our clients alongside our amazing team to help our clients grow and scale.
Yeah, between us, we have over 20 years of experience working within talent. We've helped multiple businesses from startup phase to full throttle scale up mode and beyond. So here are a couple of clients that we're working with currently. One of the areas that we're really passionate about is implementing best practices from training to scalable processes. So who are Talentful? Well, we're a 140 strong team of talent experts helping build the companies that are changing the world. Our consultants embed into high growth tech companies on a flexible basis and create outstanding recruitment processes and experiences for our clients. We're now all over the place, and you can find Talentful in London, Berlin and San Fran, working with seed-backed tech startups all the way through to household names like Google and King.
Cool, so what are we going to be covering today? We're going to be covering what is a scaling business? What are the key themes and challenges facing those businesses? And then we'll be digging into 3 key areas to focus on to enable your growth. We will also have a Q&A section at the end of the webinar. So if you think of any questions during the session, we will hopefully have some time to answer at the end.
So we thought we would start off with a fun poll to find out a little bit more about you. A window should pop up shortly asking you a question, and you can actually pick a couple of answers if you want. So what are your current challenges when scaling? Is it attracting the right talent? The people not growing with your business? Is it retaining your talent? Or is the current climate putting a hold on all plans? As I say, feel free to pick a couple of answers. Let's have a look at what the answers are. Well, we're given a few more seconds. I think all the answers are coming through thick and fast. Hopefully, we will cover all areas within this webinar. So at least if one of these is a problem area for you, we can at least cover it off. Oh, here we go. So what are your current challenges when scaling? The majority are saying attracting the right talent. Interesting. Okay, 16% are people not growing with a business, 19% retaining talent, 50% current climate. No surprise there. Great. Well, that gives us a real basis for today. As I say, hopefully we'll be able to cover off all of these areas and be able to give you some tips and tricks that you can take away with you. Okay, so let's dive right in. What exactly is a scale up? Well, a scale up, to put it simply, is a high growth company. At Talentful, we actually group our verticals via employee headcount. So for instance, when a business is at that tipping point of 100 people, they move into the scale ups division from startups. What we typically see though is when businesses have raised their Series B onwards and have capital specifically for growth, this is when they're classified as scale-ups. So Robin Dunbar, who's an anthropologist and evolutionary psychologist, has a theory that 150 is the magic number of individuals with whom any one person can maintain stable relationships. So if you think about this in terms of business sizes, this rings quite true. So as a startup, there's a family environment. It's collaborative, open and transparent, very little hierarchy, and you're all in the same space. You know what each other are working on. However, when growth hits around 150 people, it tends to start breaking down. People feel disillusioned due to not being as close to the business leaders anymore. You may know their name, but there are some blind spots in place. Perhaps senior external hires are being brought in, so silos are being created. And actually, whilst everything's more focused, you can't know what everyone is working on. This is completely normal, but it can create unease and affect your turnover, which will thus stunt your growth. So Jamie and I have been analysing the trends, company sizes, capital raised, and there is no silver bullet that triggers a certain solution. However, what we do know is how businesses transform and how we can protect and create scalable solutions. So as a leader of a scaling business, you can focus on the bigger picture. But let's pause and take a step back and really ask yourself, as a business leader, why are you scaling? Is it because you have a headcount number which triggers your next funding milestone? Or is your growth due to an increase in capacity? Maybe it's because you're missing certain skill sets. Well, many companies fall into the trap of premature scaling, which actually leads to 90% of failed startups. So let's understand the whys before you jump straight in, as they will have a knock-on effect and could cost the business far more in the long run. So let's talk about some of these challenges then.
Cool. So taking a business from a startup to a scale up is a really exciting time for any company. Hiring the right talent, hiring at volume, managing a larger workforce, an inevitable shift in company culture, finding larger office spaces, potentially opening an international office, rising recruitment costs, and still competing in a competitive landscape are, some of the challenges that you'll be facing. One of the obvious differences between a startup and a scaling business are hiring processes. What worked during your phase of growth potentially won't support you whilst you scale. There's a really good book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There by Marshall Goldsmith. I definitely recommend giving it a read. The theme of the book is that future successes can't be guaranteed by following the same processes. To succeed at scaling, you require different processes, not more of what you've already been doing. In the early days of a startup, you're trying to move as quickly as possible to get things out the door, and you're probably being quite scrappy. But as your company professionalizes and scales, you need to consider streamlining your processes and procedures to really maximize effectiveness and efficiency. As you're scaling and you're ramping up hiring, the skill sets you look for will become more established. An early stage startup tends to hire talent with generalist skills, people who can wear multiple hats and perform, multiple tasks quickly. But as you scale, the need for everyone to do everything simply isn't there anymore. And as your headcount increases, you'll need to consider building departments, workforce planning, and hiring specialist skill sets. Other things to consider as your organizational structure grows and new levels of management are created, business leaders must learn to let go and give staff power to make hiring decisions. But as you scale, you need to ensure you maintain and raise the quality bar of talent. So, as a business leader, you'll want to shift your focus to the vision and mission of your company. Although you endeavor to encourage your leaders, your leadership team to run with day-to-day tasks and projects, when it actually comes to handing over the reins to your employees, it can be quite a daunting task. Retaining your early employees will become challenging. Whilst a larger workforce will relieve the pressure from your staff in some ways, it will also give them less career mobility and less of a kind of roll up your sleeves mentality, and the family-like feeling of the early days will become diluted. I read in a recent poll across a VC's portfolio that less than 5 of your first 20 hires will stay with your company beyond 100 employees. So hiring at speed without compromising on culture is always a challenge. But how do you measure against something that is constantly evolving? I really like this quote from Harvard Business Review because it really captures the full effects and the dynamics of both a really positive and not so positive company culture has, and the impact that has on a scaling business. For scaling businesses to adapt and innovate, a changing culture is often the most challenging part of the scaling process. Opening international offices is seen as a major milestone of success, but how do you plan to hire for a new location? Will you hire someone with local market knowledge, or consider relocating talent from your home country to work overseas? Before you start recruiting in a new local market, you need to consider the capabilities and the education levels of that market, local employment law, compliance requirements, compensation, benefits, and cultural differences. And alongside all of this, you've potentially secured VC funding, and are experiencing the added pressure of hitting your next funding round, and can really feel that pressure mount as the magnifying glass intensifies. All of these examples are potentially the tip of the iceberg, and we won't have time to cover all of these points today. However, we've chosen 3 areas you can focus on to help you scale at speed without compromising on talent. So the 3 areas are company mission and vision, efficiency and effectiveness, and maintaining and raising the quality of your hires.
Yeah, exactly. So let's dive into what exactly is a vision and a mission. So from Bain & Co, they say that a mission statement defines the company's business, its objectives, and its approach to reach those objectives. A vision statement describes the desired future position of the company. Elements of the mission and vision statements are often combined to provide a statement of the company's purposes, goals, and values. So really, I see the mission statement as the call to action button. This is the bread and butter on how you will achieve and reach the goals, whilst the vision is where you want the business to be. This is the far-reaching, aspiring goal. Undoubtedly, you have already implemented these statements, but let's make sure that they're fit for purpose now. So again, to mix it up, we thought we'd throw in a brief pop quiz, as you do on a webinar. Here is an example of a mission statement. So if you could pop your answers in the question box below of who you believe this vision statement belongs to. So things at the ready. Okay, at its founding, this was a company, a computer on every desk and in every home. Whose vision statement is this? Oh, they're starting to come through. Dell, no, that's not Dell. Anyone else? A computer on every desk and in every home. Microsoft, yeah, exactly, it is Microsoft. So this vision was actually really imperative for the growth of Microsoft in the early years. Everyone apparently that you met within the business could articulate this, and it was a shared vision. So what's really interesting is that at the time when Microsoft was starting out, this really was a big goal. However, now, as you can understand, you can actually visualize having a computer in every home. Okay, so sometimes companies will mix the mission and vision together for an internal and external facing mission statement. So here's another one. Here's a mission statement from a company. And who do you believe this belongs to? To accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. And it's not BP, no. It actually belongs to, someone's got it, Tesla, very good. What's really nice about this is that the pun on accelerate for a car company works really well, but it also feeds into the wider industry. Rather than just selling cars, it's talking about sustainable energy. So look, why is this important? So the vision and mission statements are the reason people will join your business, that they will work extra hard for you and help grow your business. So when people feel that business goals are tied directly to their development, they're much more likely to go that extra mile. The vision and mission is the skeleton that drives the next level of growth and feeds into every aspect of your business. So if you're not solidified on this, then you may hire the wrong people who will in turn change and divide your culture. This can lose you a lot of money. I recently read that one bad hire can cost a business around £130,000, no exaggeration. And this is due to an accumulation of costs relating to training, productivity loss, and more. I mean, think about the impact of a bad hire in non-monetary terms, from low morale of the team interacting with them to employee turnover, and thus stretching the team and then spreading them too thinly. Wired reported that happy people are actually 12% more productive. So let's try and keep it that way. Now, Let's keep in mind that your statements may not be the same as when you were a startup. So for instance, Facebook actually changed theirs from making the world more open and connected, because Zuckerberg apparently felt that they had a responsibility to actually do more, not just to connect the world, but to bring the world closer together. So let's focus on the vision and mission now and make it honest to your business. Authenticity is key. When you create a connection to your employees and customers alike, many of them will stay loyal to you for life, much like how you buy from the same brands over and over again. This will help your profitability whilst also building out your brand. So remember, this is what you will be living and breathing, and it will feed into your values. So what can we do with all of this? Let's get tactical. What you can do once you have your vision and your mission, utilize it. This is the window into your business. This is what makes your business human, and this is your unique selling point, your USP. When hiring, make sure you're constantly reverting back to your mission and vision. You are a different business, and what works for larger multinational companies that people aspire to be like might not actually work for you. So don't pretend to be someone else, be you. Vague job descriptions, for instance, will gain a lot of applicants. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that they'll be the quality or the right for your business. Give an honest description of the position, what the business is actually like, but also what is super unique to you. When asking questions in an interview, ask the right questions. So you could ask, like, what did you enjoy the most about the last place you worked at, and what did you enjoy the least? Or what type of environment or culture are you the most happy and productive in? These types of questions will give you an insight as to whether this candidate will be able to flourish or adapt or in your business. And then when you're looking at retention and retaining your talent, this shared ownership of goals helps employees feel like they're part of the bigger picture. So looking at all of that, let's actually look at who will be working for you specifically. Did you know that this year the global workforce will be dominated by millennials and Generation X? So this means that we need to align our motivations and engagement levels, which will be different from, say, the baby boomers generation. It is actually predicted by 2025 that millennials are forecast to be 75% of the workforce. So I was reading recently that in a survey, 74% of millennials, lots of stats here, said they want the values of the business to match their own. This is massive. But how can you match their values? Well, you don't actually want to match everyone's values. You want to match what the employees coming into your business's values. So don't rush the seemingly minutial tasks, like a job description, for instance, or your values. Make sure your tone of voice is representative of your company. Your employee life cycle is centered around your vision and mission, and this is key to scaling your business.
Great. So the second area we are looking at is efficiency and effectiveness. Assessing the efficiency and effectiveness of your hiring process is no mean feat, but just like any other part of your business, analyzing your recruitment function is key to ensuring your business can scale at speed. And before we jump into this, I want to caveat some of these points with the fact that you've successfully transitioned your startup into a scale-up. So you must have been doing something right. But we don't need to reinvent the recruitment wheel immediately, but we do need to start building scalable solutions on the back of what you've already achieved. Data is king, and there are various metrics to consider, but tracking the right data for your organization is crucial for success. So the first thing to consider is kind of how you're going to attract this data. Investing in an applicant tracking system, if you don't have one already, is an obvious choice. There are loads of ATS platforms available, and choosing the right one makes all the difference in reaching your hiring goals. How to choose the right platform for your business is probably an entire webinar in its own right. There's lots to consider, so I won't go into that now. But please do your research before investing your money and your time. There are huge benefits to using an ATS platform. It plays a vital role in streamlining and automating your hiring processes. You can post jobs, manage applications, schedule interviews, and track candidates through each step of your hiring process. And it can also help with your employer brand as well. It enables collaboration between your recruiting team and your hiring managers, and is a single source of truth when sharing CVs and interview feedback. Most ATS platforms have powerful analytics tools that provide real-time dashboards and reports that help you make strategic adjustments to support your business growth. An ATS will also increase your hiring velocity and will reduce the administration burden, save you time, money, and improve your quality of hire. As I mentioned, tracking the right data is really important, but as a business leader, I picked out a few data points that will be most relevant to you, as these directly impact your ability to hire great people and scale quickly. So they are sourcing channels where you are finding your great people, pass-through rates, which is measuring how effective and efficient your process is, and then time to fill, the time it takes to actually make a hire. So in the early stages of a startup, it's common for founders to tap into their personal networks and hire people they have pre-existing relationships with. Startups also often rely on referrals from their employees, and this makes total sense. There's less risk because they are hiring people they already know and have probably worked with before. You already have knowledge of their skill set and their ability to work within a team. It saved you time, it saved you money. However, there are some downsides to this approach, as it can lead to a highly homogeneous team which lacks diversity and the ability to challenge and question the status quo. It can also lead to an unfair hiring processes where referred candidates are given preference over other candidates. And it can also impact your culture and potentially cause cliques that will damage your ability to scale. And finally, it isn't a scalable process. As your business scales, you'll need so will your need to utilize a diverse set of sourcing channels. You want to take a more creative approach to sourcing methods and use a multi-channel approach. This will increase your candidate pool, improve diversity, increase your reach of your employer brand, and also increase your speed and improve your chances of finding quality talent. There are many sourcing avenues to consider, and it really depends on the type of role you need to hire. If it's tech hiring, your sourcing strategy will probably aim towards platforms like GitHub and Stack Overflow. If you're hiring customer support or community roles, other social media channels could be the best for you. Other avenues to consider are job board advertising, events, meetups, university recruiting and marketplaces, but also don't underestimate internal movement. So next is pass-through rates, also known as conversion rates. These measure the percentage of candidates who successfully make it through each stage of your recruitment process. It's a really useful metric to identifying problem areas where disproportionate number of candidates fall out of the process. Breaking down your pass-through rates allow you to identify opportunities for improvement. So as an example, this graph, this conversion rate from recruiter screen to first stage interview is extremely low. It's only 10%. But what this doesn't tell you is why. So you'll need to explore the factors that impact this and brainstorm ideas on how you can improve. One example could be that your recruitment team and your hiring managers are misaligned on what a good candidate looks like, meaning your recruitment team are wasting time screening unsuitable candidates. Looking at historical pass-through rates is useful to give direction for future hiring, but only if you can identify the causes of candidates passing through or not passing through, This allows you to identify why your recruitment process performed the way it did and helps you improve it to scale more effectively. And then finally, time to fill. So time to fill is how long it takes your company to fill a vacancy once it's been approved. So it's a great indicator of your hiring efficiency. Time to fill should not be confused with time to hire. Time to hire tracks the time it takes between a successful candidate's first interaction and them accepting your job offer. So there's quite a bit of difference between these two. For business leaders, time to fill is a reality check on how long the whole process is taking. According to Workable, for technical roles, specifically in the UK and Ireland, the average time to fill is 65 days. So knowing your time to fill will inform realistic business planning. Far too often, scaling companies run into problems by underestimating the time it will take to complete the hiring process. With any benchmark, there is a temptation to improve on it, but this could potentially be counterintuitive. Filling all vacancies at record speed sounds ideal, but a hiring process is complex. A study by the Corporate Executive Board, the CEB, found that since 2004, the average time to fill has increased from 37 days to 51 days. Because of the difficulty in finding qualified candidates. You may not be able to load this number, but you can learn to budget time and effectively plan your hiring.
Yeah, and this leads quite nicely into quality of hire. So as you want to make sure you've taken your time to find the best candidates rather than just the first candidate. So I think quality of hire is actually a really interesting topic, because what does that actually mean? Is it defined as the value a new hire brings to the company, or how much a new hire contributes to the company's long-term success? According to LinkedIn, quality of hire is considered the KPI that best demonstrates a talent team's value to the organization, which I totally agree with. But how do you actually ascertain this? And we discussed this earlier, you're very time poor, you're starting to build up new functions, and frankly, you haven't been going for long enough to gain huge amounts of data. So research actually shows that a top performing employee generates 4 times the output of an average employee. So really, we really do need to be tracking how many of these hires become top performers. So according to LinkedIn, again, apparently the top 3 ways of measuring quality of hire is retention, time to fill, and hiring satisfaction, which is actually from the hiring managers. How one business focuses on quality of hire will actually differ massively to the next. We just need to understand what quality means to you as a business and how we can measure that. So what is actually relevant? Well, it could be ramp up time, or the actual job performance and the metrics around that. Maybe it's employee engagement with the business, or is it a cultural add? Is it the source of hire, like Jamie was talking about earlier? There's also real leaning towards biases when it comes to quality. So the brand name bias, a pet peeve of mine. Have they come from a Facebook or a Google, for instance? Or founders hiring in their own image, aka founderism bias. Time and time again, I see halo biases in interview processes. So really, we just need to be aware of these and call it out and look at diversity and inclusiveness now. As a slightly separate note, Catherine Snowden, our Associate Director within Scale Up, she recently did a webinar on unconscious bias, which I would highly, highly recommend. It was spreading the awareness of biases, and one to definitely download for tips and tricks to take away, especially if you have new hiring managers in your team. But ultimately, let's just be honest with ourselves. Look at it from the top down, from our vision and our mission right through to all the data, and then let's create a scorecard. Have different weightings as to what's actually important to you. So take the time to set this up, and it will pay dividends later on. Partnering with the talent function to make sure you're not asking for a unicorn and wasting everyone's time, but you're looking for someone who will keep raising your quality bar, because now you know what quality is according to your business. Okay, so what should we actually be looking for? So I came across this. Have you heard of CQ, Curiosity Quotient? The term even was coined by author and journalist Thomas L. Friedman to discuss how people are motivated to learn about a personally interesting subject, whether they have a high IQ or not. So his fictitious formula is CQ plus PQ is greater than IQ. Whilst this is actually not meant to be taken literally, I do believe there is some semblance of truth within it. Are we interviewing effectively to understand what this potential employee will add to our business from a curiosity or a passion or a growth mindset? Whilst you don't need someone to wear multiple hats anymore, you do need someone to go that extra mile and be innovative. So actually Laszlo Bock, who was the head of people operations at Google, he spearheaded research looking at everyone they hired to figure out if high GPAs, which is a grade point average from your education, does it actually correlate with performance? And it turns out it doesn't. So it kind of goes back to attitude over aptitude. Are you hiring the next leaders who are going to go above and beyond? Are they here, or are they here because they just want a job? It comes down to you as a leader to set the tone. If you do the legwork now and set up a successful process, which is inclusive of data, your vision and mission, your unique selling point, and you create that journey that is engaging and inspiring for your employees, then you will reap the rewards. Quality of hire is actually all about the longevity within the role and the rewards you both gain. There is no single calculation. So you need to assess what quality is for you and then implement it. So it could be retention or performance ratings or whichever other metric you decide upon. Create the weighted scorecard and work backwards. This will be super impactful for your teams when they're hiring as well. And ultimately, it will also set up this person for success. So for instance, ask yourself, what will make this person successful within 6 to 12 months? It's really easy to forget to do this when you're hiring at pace. Or what about where they can grow? Because sometimes you just won't know that due to the stage of the business, but be mindful that this person could grow into the next leader. What attributes are quality to you and how do you evaluate them on that? When you've assessed what your quality of hire is, you can then build out the sourcing methods, processes, onboarding, and engagement strategies to then scale your business with great people. And you want this because then they will stay and they will grow with you as a business.
Hiring is hard. It's a competitive marketplace and will continue to be so. However, if you get the fundamentals right, you will enable your business to scale quicker. Use this time now to evaluate and set yourself up for success when you're ready to ramp up again. Hopefully, you found today's webinar useful. If you would like to connect or discuss anything in more detail, please do so. You can find myself and Alice on LinkedIn, or you can drop us an email. Support beyond today, you can find information about Talentful and all of our services on our website, along with some other useful webinars as well. And please also keep an eye out for future webinars too. So we will open the floor to some questions.
There's one already in here. Jamie, do you want to answer this one? What should we be asking from the talent team in terms of data to track their success?
Yeah, I think it's about working with them. It's, it is about partnering, getting together to really understand what data is important. Like I mentioned earlier, like what data is actually going to be valuable. There's loads of data that you can track. You can track loads of stuff, but it might not be useful. So I think for me, the best data or the most impactful data links back to business goals and kind of business objectives. So yeah, getting together, understanding what data is going to be relevant to track that relates to your business objectives.
Yeah, nice. Just, I'm not sure whether we mentioned it earlier, there's a question mark icon, and that's what you'd use to ask any more questions. But we have another one coming in here. Which ATS would you recommend? Ooh.
Shall I take this one as well?
Yeah, go for it. Why not? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think first of all, sit down and work out what you need from an ATS. You might have an ATS in place already, but it might not be fit for purpose. I'd kind of suggest, going back to the drawing board and starting with a blank piece of paper and really working out what that candidate journey looks like and how that can be emulated within a platform. We've done loads of evaluations for multiple clients, and we found that what's important to each business is really different. So work out what's important to you. To name some names, I think there are some platforms that are better suited depending on where you are in your business journey. If you're a smaller business, a startup, potentially a smaller scale up, something like Teamtailor could be suitable. If you're slightly bigger, maybe something like Workable or Lever. We find those are quite common with our clients. But then with the bigger scale up businesses and enterprise businesses as well, we find Greenhouse is pretty useful. They have a really robust analytics platform. So there's a few suggestions.
Nice.
There's a question here.
Yeah.
What other books would you recommend?
Goodness, there are lots. I mean, we've mentioned 2 already. I think Jamie mentioned the Marshall Goldsmith, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And I referred to Start With Why by Simon Sinek. It's an old classic. Drive by Daniel Pink is another really great one, looking at people's motivations. Creativity Inc., Overcoming the Unseen Forces. That's a really great one by Ed Catmull. It's a great example actually of finding your voice as a leader and making difficult decisions, and it's really fascinating from a growth perspective, particularly because it's quite a well-known business. Yeah, there's loads actually. That one person's also, could you repeat the three quality of hire metrics? So I think you're referring to what LinkedIn actually measured it. So they said retention, time to fill, and hiring satisfaction from the hiring managers. What I will say is go back to creating your own scorecard about what actually quality means for you as a business. So for instance, time to fill is a great one, but actually if you've got all the time in the world and you've got one hire to make and you're going to ramp up a bit later on, then actually is it that important? Again, hiring satisfaction from the hiring managers, validate actually what's qualitative about that. I would almost look at putting metrics in for setting this person up for success. So do they ramp up appropriately in the probation period? How do you measure their job performance, and actually what are they giving back to the company? If we're kind of looking at the 4 times an average employee, it's worth kind of actually analysing what quality is for you rather than taking what everyone else is doing, if that makes sense.
Nice. Another question probably for you as well, Alice. How do you see businesses needing to change and cater for the increase in the millennial workforce, and should they even change?
I think millennials get a bit of a bad rep, and I think I'm using this as what people are saying. This is not my general opinion, but that kind of self-obsessed or whiny, and when actually I think we need to start flipping it on its head. I think we need to start looking at millennials having a conversation with us and they're actually engaging with us, hence why they're, in inverted commas, complaining or whining or whatever. I think we need to look at our management style and how we work together as a team, rather than the old school, I'll tell you what to do and you go away and do it. I think we need to utilize the communities, and we need to utilize the digitally native workforce that's coming up who are super creative. And we need to engage, and we need to train our managers to be able to adapt and welcome ideas and work together. But ultimately, let's treat everyone as individuals. You don't need to kind of have a brushstroke of who everyone is. I think it's very much about what do you represent to your business. It goes back to your vision, your mission, which feeds into your values, and be true to them, because the right people will stay within your business because they also believe in that. I heard somewhere that personalities change throughout the years, but values don't. So I think that's quite key to actually being honest with yourself and working with the people together rather than telling. Cool. Okay, hope that made sense.
Yeah.
And what's this question? What measure can you put in place to deal with retention? Good question. Jamie?
I think there's one thing that's kind of measuring retention, but then also kind of dealing with retention is potentially a much bigger topic. I think measuring retention, there's a formula in terms of actually how to calculate retention. Our people director, Victoria, has a really wonderful way of measuring it. It's this really kind of squiggly line that's quite difficult to read, but it kind of makes sense to her. So I think, in terms of measuring retention, you often want to kind of see a pretty, people, like, I think people are going to leave your business. I think that's inevitable. But having kind of steady attrition rate is a good way of giving yourself a benchmark. And then kind of in terms of how you can kind of deal with retention, I think is about asking your workforce and understanding what it's like to work for your businesses and ways you can improve life for your employees, and there's lots of tools and different ways of using that. So yeah, I think there's lots of ways to approach it, basically.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's just to further that, there's loads of engagement platforms out there that you could utilize where it could be anonymized and you could asking questions to your business. There's also I would highly recommend like peer-to-peer communities as well to increase retention and inclusiveness and diversity, because particularly as you're growing as a business and scaling, it's those blind spots that we were talking about earlier. And actually, if you're not as close to the founders or the business leaders anymore, what you actually want to do is create little pockets of people talking to each other in communities, whether of hobbies or running clubs or whatever it is. This will also feed into their values, feed into what they believe in, and will bring more happiness to a workplace, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how important is it to bring in talent from larger companies as you're scaling up? Ooh, good question.
Do you want to take it, or should I?
No,
Should
go for it.
I was just going to say, like, I definitely think it's important to hire businesses from larger companies. I think it's important to hire talent from smaller companies and same size companies. I feel like the size of the company should almost be irrelevant when you're considering people and when you're interviewing people. You should have a way of measuring and questions to ask that really assess if they have the skills and capabilities to work in your company within the role that you're hiring for. So I think often we have like a perception of what people are like at these larger companies, and especially if they are coming from a big brand, a well-known brand as well. But not everybody that works within a really big well-known brand is going to be suited for the role that you're hiring for. So it's down to the individual. So I definitely think it's important that you bring in talent from larger companies, but focus on the individual skill set.
Yeah, and you can dig deeper in the interview process, where actually we're very easy to brand someone from a large company, but it's what we were saying earlier with the brand name bias. I want someone from a Facebook or a Google. Well, actually, a Facebook and a Google now is not what you need. You need the Facebook or the Google 10 years ago to actually utilize for your business. So actually, it's about probing in the interview and actually saying, hey, this is what we're doing, what have you done previously, give us some examples and let's dive deeper into those and actually figure out whether this is the right fit for us both.
Cool. Another question, would you consider a hackathon as a way to identify tech talent when scaling? I would say definitely.
Yeah.
I think any creative ways of engaging with the audience that you're wanting to hire from, you know, is a great idea. So anything like a hackathon or something similar to that, I'd say it would be a good idea.
Yeah, totally. Let's be creative. You don't have to conform to the, this is what the job is, come join the company, it's great. It's actually, you know, what's your employer brand? It's so important to kind of feed it back to being authentic to yourself. Who are you? What do you represent? And let's engage people. Hackathons are a great way. I also saw that a while ago, you know, people doing job descriptions in code as well. So if you manage to break the codes, you could get in, you know, let's get your name out there and let's be inventive and innovative. And then there's a retention question here. What would you consider regular stay interviews, meeting with employees to reduce retention? Oh, what, so having regular conversations with your team? Does that mean maybe? So increasing retention, yeah, I think you've got to have a dialogue. Don't shy away from having difficult conversations. I definitely think using, as we said before, engagement platforms to hear what people are not liking and liking. I think having conversations with different pockets of communities, little workshops. George Morris, our startup director, introduced a talent boxing idea on our training days, which actually, you know, you get groups of people together and you discuss a problem, like a bigger problem, and you have 10 to 15, maybe 20 minutes as a team to kind of really beat it up and chew it up and talk. And it's actually a really great way to actually talk about things that's bigger questions about the company. And actually, instead of, you know, the senior leadership team just trying to do it themselves, open it up to the wider business, because some really interesting and great things will come from it. Good, I think covered all of our questions. But as I say, if you have any more questions, please do reach out to us. I'm super passionate about this, so you will have to try and shut me up. But on that note, I will. Thank you very much for your time today. And
thank you.
hopefully we will see you on the next one.